Hello, everybody. That's Ron over here at Becoming Enlightened Together. We're here for yet another daily read and closing off the week as a whole. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it because it's inevitable. I'm going to end up segueing at some point, as much as I try to avoid it. So I hope you guys had a great weekend, by the way, or having a good weekend, I should say. All right, so the overall weekly energy is that of Nalthus. Now, Nalthus is in reverse, as it has been all week, of course. And what that talks about, of course, is going in the wrong direction. Somebody who's possessive, um, somebody who's feeling drudgery and laxity, toil and distress. Uh, Somebody within or themselves providing some type of inappropriate restraint to some freedom. Now, that freedom can be from a psychological or a physical sense, but I get the feeling, as I said all week long, that it's more of a psychological thing, or at least to a greater degree, it's psychological. You can always leave. Okay. It talks about necessities, want, deprivation, starvation, poverty, emotional hunger as well. Okay, so that's what somebody out there is actually feeling. Okay, and again, it's not so much for the collective as a whole. It's for those in our life, which would be categorized, of course, into the more karmic side. I seem to get a lot of the karmic readings or the karmic energies, perhaps because I've had to deal with so many of them along the way, and you know, I've had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations directly as a result of my, you know, direct exposure to so many different types in that regard. Family, friends, so-called loved ones, again, so-called, and so on and so forth. When you are what they classify as a high-oka empath or a dark empath, which means you have all the positive attributes as somebody who's very highly empathetic and intuitive and so on. But you also have the darker side. You slay those demons, in other words. And you tend to be a magnet to people who are narcissistic, for example, those who are avoidant, people who are just nasty a lot of the time. They are attracted like a moth to the flame, to your light. But it's because they see your empathy as a form of something that they can manipulate. There's something about you that draws them in. And then you end up basically slaying them. Okay? Not intentionally. You don't want to hurt them in any way, shape, or form, but you end up exposing them for what they truly are because they basically tried to take advantage of you in some way, thinking that they were smarter than you, thinking that they were smarter, stronger, and go down the list of attributes that somebody who's trying to basically pull the wool over somebody else's eyes would utilize as that's a good victim. And you fool them every time. And, they end up either learning a very valuable lesson or literally falling into the hole that they themselves dug and then burying themselves in it. It's fortunate, um, and not a lot of us are capable of handling this type of a mission, and until you become aware of that, it's an exceptionally difficult place to be because you think that there's something broken in you, something wrong with you. Even though you've done everything you possibly can to try to do right by people and you've gone out of your way to, help, you've gone out of your way to, to give aid and comfort, and things of that nature. But they see it as a form of weakness, and then they take advantage. They try to exploit, and then basically you end up exposing them for who they really are, even though most of them come cloaked in some form of either religious veneer or some other type of self-created mask that they want everybody to believe about them. Okay, and that mask is torn off, with time by your actions. So that is the lot for some of us, and it's not an easy one to bear, I must say. But I've been blessed with the understanding of that position and knowing full well what that means. It's lightened the load to some degree of being able to deal with that. So for those who are also sharing that burden, then you understand why it's also important to understand, the mind, if you will, of the criminal. I don't want to say that they're criminals. They're just people that are basically at a different place in their journey. Okay, they're much younger souls a lot of the time, or sometimes extremely stubborn souls who just refuse to learn. And they've had to repeat lessons sometimes in multiple lives, if you're one who believes in that, which I do. Alright, so now for today, the energy for the past and the present is exactly the same. So what we see is basically mighty Thor and his father Odin actually making an appearance in this daily reading. So unfortunately, Thor shows up for both the past and the present energy in the reverse, and that's a nasty energy. So we have Thurisaz in the reverse. It talks about, and again, this is Thor's room. It talks about stubbornness, foolhardiness. It talks about folly, danger, defenselessness, and compulsiveness. It talks about somebody who will betray you in a heartbeat. A dull personality, somebody who's evil, calculated, who is one who's exhibits hatred. He's a torment, or she is tormented soul, spiteful, a liar, an evil person, a rapist, perhaps, and someone who just does not heed advice. Okay, you cannot, even with your very best empathetic voice of reason, you cannot get through to their steel door over their heart. Okay, it's just not possible. So again, that was the energy that we pulled for Saturday, last Sunday, and that is also the energy I pulled today for today, Saturday. So, and they both came up in the reverse. The odds against that are pretty high, especially since there's only 24 runes and each one of them can be either upright or reverse. So, but that's what happened, not just today, but also yesterday. So, I don't know. The gods are definitely trying to tell us something. Spirits, our ancestors, the Most High, whoever it is that you believe in, okay? And I'm not trying to tell you what to believe. I'm just sharing, trying to come at it from multiple angles. As, like I said, I've looked at this from every possible angle that I could get some type of reference materials that I could review and really look into to try to understand, where this comes from a historical standpoint, from a mythological standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, from my gut feeling, my intuitive ability standpoint, to much of the literature that I've acquired in terms of runes, rune lore, and what each one of them is supposed to mean. And it's a little different. Every author has got a little different take on some of the information here. You put all this together, though, and you get a better understanding, I think, although it can get a little bit murky at times, of what's going on. Okay, so again, that's the energy for both the past and the present for today. So we can pretty much assume that's very much the case for the people that we're talking about in our particular lives. They are really not very good people right now. And again, they're just people who are at a different place in our journey, but that still needs to have caution when dealing with people who are in this extremely low vibration, okay? Because that's where, you know, the worst things that humanity are capable of happen. So be aware, but don't be paranoid. Now, in terms of our obstacles and challenges, we have mighty Odin show up, the father of Thor, okay? And this is in the upright. In fact, it's the only rune in the upright today, just like yesterday. The only rune that was in the upright was during the obstacles and challenges, because that tells us, well, let's look at what that energy is first, and I'll explain it. Now, Ansus is what that rune is, Thor's rune, and basically talks about not only your ancestral god, whatever that is for you, and for, of course, the the Vikings, it was mighty Odin. Before that, it was Tyr. But it also means wisdom and inspiration, advice. We just heard from the Thor's rune in the reverse that this is somebody who can't take advice. Okay, so it also talks about insights, messages, speech, the power of words, blessings, taking advice, again, good health, harmony, and truth. All of those things are a hindrance to this person because they are exactly in the opposite energy, the opposite mindset. They are incapable, as we just heard, of taking good advice. So that would be an obstacle for us more than it would be for them, because they're going to do what they're going to do, what they've been planning to do, or what they're motivated for their own self-preservation or for their own evil desires to do, irregardless of what is right or wrong, and what case that even the greatest and most skilled and most gifted and most articulate, if you will, lawyer could present to this person. It would still fall upon deaf ears, is basically what we're getting at. So that's why it's an obstacle and challenge. It's not to say that you shouldn't try to help somebody, give them the advice that's necessary, and so on and so forth. It's just telling you that it will fall upon deaf ears. They're still going to do whatever they're going to do, and they'll probably do that while smiling at you, and you think you're getting through, but in the reality of the situation, they're just plotting your demise. For some cases, as we're seeing here, that's very possible. All right. Yesterday I told you about my dealings with people like with borderline personality disorder, and there's different levels to that. In fact, there's 3 distinct categories, at least the last time I looked at the literature, because I had somebody in my life that was suffering from that. And I went to the therapy and all that kind of stuff, and I got the literature and I learned as much about it as I could to see where they were. And of course they were at the most extreme level, and most therapists, they don't even want to touch that to begin with. But when you get to that level, and it could literally last their entire life, they could be extreme in the things that they do. Okay, but that's as far as I want to go with that. Now, in terms of the help and advice, we got Manas. Now, Manas also is in the reverse. Now, Manas is basically a rune that talks about selfishness, somebody who's uninvolved, egotistical, somebody who's lonely, depressed perhaps, somebody who's looking at their own mortality in this case. Maybe they've got a diagnosis and that's just pushing them over the edge, so to speak. Somebody who is extremely blind to any sense of what's right and so on, or even truth in general. Somebody who's delusional, that's another word for that particular rune specifically. Somebody who's cunning, who plans, plots, schemes, somebody who's very sly, crafty and calculated. But they can expect absolutely no help at this time. And I'm talking about from the higher forces. Okay? You've made this whole. Your ancestors, spirit, have been doing everything imaginable to try to get you to reflect and do the work, to do the right thing. And you basically just snubbed your nose up at them, basically, just flipped them the bird, whatever the case may be, give them the old. So, as patient as they are and as long-suffering as they have been, now you're going to suffer the repercussions of your actions, otherwise known as karma. Okay? And the future is Berkana. Now, Berkana, too, is in the reverse. And that means that this is somebody that's specifically suffering from family problems, either immediate family or their extended family. Okay, so family issues, family needs, family problems, domestic issues, domestic problems, anxiety over somebody in their family, sterility, stagnation, carelessness, again, abandon, loss of control, deception is the theme of this reading all throughout. So the karmics, as we're seeing, are really, really getting their asses handed to them, and there's no nicer way to put it. They are being judged, and we're talking about the ones who just simply refused to do the work, to stop what they were doing, to stop or to not start to go within, I should say, and actually do the inner work and things of that nature that they need to do, to reflect, to try to make amends, to repent. I mean, go down the gamut of possibilities in regards to what I'm saying there, and it could be any one of those and all of those, depending on each and every one of you, of course. So I know people in my life that are certainly going through it. I know people that I haven't talked to right now, and I feel it, that they too are going through it right now, for these very reasons. So if you are a cross watcher, if you're secretly watching me and you are one of those people, you know why you're going through it. Nobody cast any, well, let me put it to you this way. I didn't put any magic on you. Nobody in the collective would do such a thing. That's not what we do. We're here to help, not to harm. Okay? You are the ones who are out there doing the nasty stuff and trying to use what you used to have in terms of power and things of that nature, to use it against, the collective. So, if you will, the Most High, God, is only going to allow you to get away with those things for so long. Once we've learned our lessons through that challenge, learned how to defend ourselves, then judgment can actually be, rendered for what you have done, your part. So he takes what, was evil, and just like Jesus said, you meant it for harm, but it wasn't Jesus that said that. I think it was Joseph that said that in the Old Testament. Yeah, when after his brothers sold him into slavery and all of that, and they came to him later on in Egypt, so they wouldn't starve to death during a great famine. And he said to them, after making amends with his brothers who sold him into slavery many years earlier, that even though they meant it for evil, God meant it for good. And that's exactly what's happening now with the collective. For those out there who've been suffering for a tremendous long period of time, and this has been a 10 to 15 year cycle for us. So it has been very, very difficult. And again, this is where we're at right now. This is like a story of Joseph, so to speak. You can look at it as a Cinderella story too, if you want to get more into a materialistic standpoint, a Disney style perspective. But I see it more, and probably more accurately, as the dogmatic, spiritual. I would say religious, but I'm not religious. But there are truths found in all religions, I would still argue. I'm closest to an omnist more than any other type of denominational title you could give to me. But I look at all things, including science, history, and everything else, to come to my conclusions. It's not just a one-size-fits-all approach for me. I look at all of the available information. But anyways, as I said I would, I did segue here and there, and that's just who I am. So that's probably why I just don't attract a whole lot of people out there right now. I know a lot of it's marketing, and I'll get more into that later on as far as learning all the ins and outs as far as YouTube. But right now I just want to help whoever it is that's meant to hear this. God will make sure that they come across this, either now or whenever in the future. And for you, all of you that are going through this, I know it's been difficult, and congratulations to you. You are my brothers and sisters, so I send you a great deal of love, respect, because I know how hard it was, and I know all the sacrifices you had to make in order to get to this point. So, God bless all of you, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Okay, until then, stay victorious, and later on in the future, and yes, this is more just a dogmatic thing I throw at the end. We all have our little catchphrases and things like that, but I will see you in the end in Valhalla, where we will do battle that one last time for evil versus good, good versus evil type of a thing. It's never the last time. Anyway, I could get off into a whole other diatribe on that subject. I won't do it. You guys take care and God bless. Bye-bye.